What's going on, y'all? I'm Czar, and in this video, I want to compare the Waves REQ to the PreSonus Pro EQ 2. So someone asked on the Studio One Facebook group if anyone preferred REQ to Pro EQ, and I do prefer REQ, and I want to go over those reasons why I do in this video. And to get it out the way up front, it's not about the sound. Both of these sound similar enough to me that it wouldn't influence me one way or the other between these two. But the reason I prefer REQ is because of the functionality that Waves has built into this plugin. But going off of sound, let's get that out the way first. I've got the same settings set up on both of these EQ for this vocal, and this is the REQ.
I'm falling, falling, I'm falling. Someone catch me now.
And this is the Pro EQ 2.
I'm falling, falling, I'm falling. Someone catch me now.
All right, so very similar sounds between those two. So let's talk about the functionality of REQ, which is why I really like it. This is one of the first Waves plugins I ever got, and it's one of the Waves plugins that I continue to use on all my mixes. So the first thing I want to point out in REQ is that as I move the mouse pointer, I can see what frequency represents that note. This is something that I wish Pro EQ had, and you can switch this to 12th octave and you can see the keyboard, but this still doesn't tell you exactly what note is for what frequency here. However, if you pull up the spectrum analyzer for Studio One, you get that functionality in that plugin. So I'm not sure why it's not in the Pro EQ, but that's one of the reasons here that I prefer REQ. Another reason is you have setup A, you have setup B, and you can flip between these two. So I can do different EQ curves here on setup B and flip seamlessly between A and decide which one of those I like better. A lot of people don't realize this, but any Waves plugin that you see this trim, this is going to tell you how much headroom you have left. So I'm going to turn on REQ. Let's go back to my setup A. I want to play a little bit of this vocal, and we'll see where this number is, and I'll explain what that is.
I'm falling, falling, I'm falling. Someone catch me now. I'm falling, falling, I'm falling. Take me back somehow.
Okay, I thought it was going to change, but it didn't. But negative 8.3, that means we are negative 8.3 dB away from hitting 0. So a really good plugin to tell how much headroom you have left. And this trim, if I click this, is going to add 8.3 dB to the signal to get it up to 0. So I like that feature a lot. Let's go to setup B and let's clear these. So another thing I really like about REQ is that it is a asymmetrical EQ. And what that means is that when I boost, you see how wide this boost is? And when I cut, you can see that is a more narrow cut. So with the asymmetrical curve EQ, the boost is going to be wide and the cut is going to be narrow. With the Pro EQ is symmetrical, meaning that whatever I boost, let's move this down, whatever I boost, you're going to get the exact same thing on the cut. So that is symmetrical, and asymmetrical is you have a narrow cut, wider boost, which I prefer when I'm EQing things like vocals. I want a more narrow cut, and when I'm boosting things, I typically want a wider boost. So it's another reason I prefer the REQ there. And lastly, you can get some really unique curves with the shelf on the REQ. So this shelf here, if I take this Q, let's actually make this bigger. So you can see as I'm boosting this, we're starting to get this dip here on the bottom of the shelf. see how I can change that with the Q here, which just really makes for some interesting EQ curves that I like to use when I'm using the shelf on the REQ. So those are the reasons that I prefer the REQ over the Pro EQ2. Both of them are great. I've used them both a lot, used the REQ even more. And I mean, another reason that I prefer it is just because I'm so familiar with the REQ that I can go to it and quickly get what I need out of it. If you want to learn more about the REQ, I'll have a link in the description where you can check that out. And also, this is the 6-band, but it also comes in a 4-band and 2-band version. All right, is there a versatile all-around EQ that you prefer to use? Comment and let me know. Any questions, comments, let me know, and I'll catch y'all next time. I want to invite you to check out my podcast, the Faders Up Podcast, where we discuss pro audio and beyond. We discuss everything from recording to gear to the music business. So if you're an audio engineer, songwriter, recording artist, music producer, this podcast is for you. We recently started season 2, and we're going to have a lot of listener questions on this season, as well as some really cool guests that's lined up and giveaways as well. So if you've already subscribed and followed the podcast, thank you. If you haven't, it's available on all platforms, and I encourage you to check it out. Also, rate it and review it and let us know what you think.